John Miller once fought in the Great Galactic War. He had seen worlds burn, ships explode, and friends vanish into dark space. When the war ended, he wanted nothing more than silence. So he left the crowded systems and bought a small ranch on a forgotten planet called Arden 7. The planet was dry, red, and endless. Every morning 2 suns climbed the horizon like golden eyes. John fixed fences, grew food, and listened only to the wind. He spoke to no one, not even the supply droid that visited once a month. People called him the Ghost Rancher, but he didn't care. Peace was all he wanted. One quiet evening the sky turned violet. The air shimmered as dust rolled across the desert. John sat on his porch with a cup of bitter coffee. He watched the sun sink behind the dunes and felt the cool wind brush his face. That was when the old comm tower began to hum. It had been silent for years. He frowned and went inside. Static filled the room like whispering ghosts. Then a weak voice came through. "Please, any station, 11 of us, need shelter. Please." It was a woman's voice, soft and afraid. He hesitated. He had promised himself never to answer distress calls again. War had taken too much from him. He shut the comm, but the voice played again, slower, breaking. "Please, they're coming." John sighed, took his rifle from the wall, and stepped outside. Night had fallen completely. 2 moons floated above the desert like pale lanterns. Far away, a flicker of movement crossed the sand. He walked toward it, boots sinking into dust. As he came closer, he saw shapes, tall figures wrapped in torn cloaks. There were 11 of them, all women. Their skin glowed faintly silver under the moonlight. Their eyes shone like soft blue glass. They looked tired, hungry, and scared. The one in front spoke first. "Human, we seek refuge. Please, we mean no harm." Her voice trembled, but her posture was proud. John lowered his weapon a little. "Who are you?" he asked. She bowed her head. "We are widows of the Zereth War. Our worlds are gone. Our homes burned. We have nothing left." He stared at them in silence. Their faces told stories of loss deeper than words. Something inside him, something human, stirred again. He remembered the look of refugees during the war. The same fear, the same hope. He looked back toward his house, small, lonely, but warm. He had space, food, water, and silence. Too much silence. He exhaled slowly. "Follow me," he said, turning away. The women exchanged glances of disbelief. One whispered, "He's letting us in?" Another began to cry quietly. They followed him through the metal gate and across the yard. The sand glowed blue beneath their feet. Inside the ranch, the old lights flickered on. Dust floated like tiny stars in the air. John pointed toward the storage room. "You can rest here for tonight," he said. "I'll bring food and water." The leader bowed her head deeply. "You have our gratitude. Human, we will not forget this." He nodded and walked back to the porch. He didn't know why he had done it. Maybe he was tired of being alone. Maybe he simply couldn't ignore voices begging for help. Above the desert, the wind howled through the metal towers. For a moment, he thought he saw a red light flash in the sky, like an eye watching. He rubbed his tired eyes. Probably a satellite, he thought. But somewhere out there, beyond the dunes, someone had noticed the signal. Ships were moving. Hunters were coming. And by opening his door that night, John Miller had invited danger into his quiet world. The silence of Arden 7 would never be the same again. The next morning came quietly. Soft red light slipped through the cracked windows of John's ranch. He woke early as always, but this time the air felt different. He heard faint voices from the storage room, calm, melodic, and strange. For years he had lived in silence, and now the house was full of whispers. He made coffee, looked at the pot, and sighed. He wasn't used to sharing anything anymore. Still, he filled a large metal pot with water and some dried alien roots. Breakfast, he thought, simple but warm. When he entered the room, the women stood quickly. Their leader, the one who had spoken last night, bowed slightly. "Good morning, human," she said softly. Her name was Lyra. Up close, John noticed faint marks on her neck, glowing lines that pulsed like veins of light. The other women had them too, though weaker. "You all look like you've been walking for weeks," John said. She nodded. "We were running," Lyra whispered. "From what?" "Not what," she corrected him. "From who?" John didn't ask more, but his eyes narrowed. He had seen that look before. the look of people hunted by something they couldn't fight. He placed the pot on the table. Eat, then rest, we'll talk later, he said. They obeyed quietly, grateful, sharing the meal like it was their first in months. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the sharp scent of ozone. Something was shifting in the air. When John went to check the comm tower, he noticed new readings flashing across the screen. Unfamiliar energy signatures, ships entering orbit. He frowned. The system had been empty for years. No traders, no patrols, no one. He returned to the house. Lyra stood near the window, her silver eyes following him. You know something's out there, don't you? He asked. She hesitated, then spoke quietly. They found us faster than I hoped. John's heart sank. Who's they? The Syndicate, she said. They want what we carry, a living code, something only our kind can protect. He stepped closer. What kind of code? Lyra's hand glowed faintly, and for a moment, he saw a light form above her palm, a pattern like a floating symbol, alive and shifting. It's part of an ancient archive, she said, the knowledge of 1,000 worlds, hidden in our blood. John stared in disbelief. So they're hunting you because of that? Lyra nodded, her eyes full of tired courage. We escaped the labs. We hid in ruins. Now only 11 of us remain. He rubbed his face, trying to understand. All he wanted was peace, a quiet life far from war. But now fate had dropped 11 targets on his doorstep. Then you can't stay here, he muttered. She looked at him with calm sadness. You saved us, human. Leaving now means death. He looked outside, at the horizon where the red desert met the sky. He could already see a faint shimmer, dust trails from something moving fast. He clenched his jaw. Damn it, he whispered. I didn't survive one war, just to start another. Lyra stepped closer, her voice gentle but strong. You are not alone this time, she said. We may be widows, but we are not weak. John saw the truth in her eyes. They were frightened, but ready. Something old stirred inside him. The instinct of a soldier, the protector he had buried long ago. He turned toward the barn. I've got drones, defenses, and old turrets still buried in sand. We'll make it work. The women exchanged glances of surprise. For the first time, Lyra smiled. You fight for those who have nothing to offer, she said. John shrugged. Peace doesn't mean watching others die. Hours later, the sun set again. The ranch stood silent, but this time with purpose. The fences powered up, sensors blinked alive, and in the distance, shadows moved closer. John loaded his rifle and stood by the gate. The widows watched from the windows, glowing eyes filled with fear and trust. He felt the old fire rise again, not the rage of war, but the strength to protect. The desert wind carried the sound of engines. He tightened his grip. For years, he had lived alone, chasing peace. Now peace had turned into a battlefield once more. And John Miller, the ghost rancher, was ready to fight for 11 lives that had nowhere else to go. The sun sank low over Arden 7. Long shadows stretched across the red sand as darkness crept in. John Miller stood outside his ranch, scanning the horizon. The air was heavy, still, almost listening. He could feel trouble coming, the same quiet before every battlefield he had ever known. Inside the house, the 11 alien widows whispered in their strange melodic language. They helped one another prepare small energy cells, charging them with faint blue light. Lyra moved between them, calm but alert, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dusk. John entered, carrying a worn crate of old weapons and dusty ammunition. They're coming tonight, he said, his voice low and certain. How can you tell? Lyra asked. He pointed toward the horizon. The desert was glowing faintly red. That color, he said. It's not the sunset. It's engine burn. The women froze, the fear on their faces mixing with silent determination. John dropped the crate on the table. Pick something you can handle, he said. One of them, younger and shaking, whispered, We were not soldiers. He looked at her firmly. You don't have to be, just stay alive. He moved quickly, checking the fences and power grid. Old memories returned. How to lay traps, how to use terrain, how to outsmart an army with nothing but grit. The desert wind carried faint metallic sounds now. They were close. He activated the motion sensors, and holographic warnings lit the night. Lyra joined him by the gate, holding a small plasma pistol. Her hands trembled, but her eyes did not. We will stand beside you, she said. He gave a small nod. Let's make them regret coming here. The first ship descended silently, its black hull cutting through the night like a blade. Searchlights swept the dunes. John hid behind the old water tanks, waiting. Then the soldiers came, masked, armored, efficient. The syndicate. They moved with cold precision, scanning every corner. One raised his weapon toward the barn. Before he could fire, John squeezed the trigger of his rifle. The shot cracked through the desert, and the soldier dropped. The rest reacted instantly, energy bolts flashing through the dark. John ducked, rolled, and fired again, his movements sharp and exact. The ranch exploded into chaos, sand, smoke, and streaks of light everywhere. Inside, the widows hid the youngest among them, shielding her with their bodies. Then Lyra shouted, "Activate the field." Blue light burst from her hand, connecting with the fence's generator. A shimmering wall of energy surrounded the ranch like a glowing dome. Shots hit it and scattered into sparks. John looked back, astonished. "You didn't tell me you could do that." Lyra smiled faintly even under fire. "You didn't ask." For hours they fought. John reloaded again and again, his shoulder aching, his lungs burning. Every time he thought he'd fall, he heard their voices behind him, calm, singing words in their own language. It gave him strength. He remembered why he had once believed in the war, not for governments, not for glory, but for life itself, for people like them. Finally, the firing stopped. The syndicate troops pulled back, retreating into the dunes. John stayed alert, watching. The widows stepped outside, their clothes torn, their faces lit by the faint blue fence. The desert was silent again. Bodies lay in the sand, black armor shining under the twin moons. Lyra walked beside him. "They will come again," she said quietly. "I know," John replied, reloading his weapon slowly. "But now they know this ranch isn't easy prey." She looked at him, this tired human who had given them shelter when no one else would. Her voice softened. "You fight like someone who has lost too much." He gave a small half-smile. "And you run like someone who's still got something worth saving." The night grew colder. John turned toward the house. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow we'll bury the ones who came too close." The widows nodded and followed, silent shadows beneath the stars. As he walked back to the porch, John looked once more toward the horizon. Somewhere far away, he saw more red lights blinking. More ships. He took a deep breath. Peace was gone again, but something better had returned. Purpose. And he wasn't ready to lose it, not this time. The ghost rancher of Arden, Seven, had become a soldier once more. And this time, he wasn't fighting for medals or orders. He was fighting for 11 lives that believed in him. The morning after the battle came with silence. Not the peaceful silence John used to love, but the heavy kind, the silence that follows gunfire, smoke, and fear. The ranch was scarred, the fences half-burned, sand turned black where plasma bolts had struck. John stood with a shovel in his hand, digging graves behind the barn. He didn't bury the syndicate soldiers out of respect. He buried them because he didn't want vultures circling the house. The widows watched from the porch, wrapped in long silver cloaks. Their eyes glowed faintly in the light of Arden Seven's twin sons. Lyra stepped forward, helping him lift the last body. "You still honor the dead," she said quietly. John wiped sweat from his forehead. "Even monsters were once men," he muttered. For a moment, they both stared at the horizon. Nothing moved, no ships, no dust trails, no sound. But they both knew the quiet wouldn't last. Later, inside the ranch, John checked the comm screen. No signal, no messages. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "They'll be back," he said, "and next time, they'll bring more." Lyra stood beside him, her fingers tracing strange patterns in the air. "We will be ready," she said, her voice calm. "You've got some kind of trick up your sleeve?" he asked. She looked at him, and then at her people. "Yes," she said simply, "but you won't like it." The floor lights dimmed as the widows formed a circle. Blue light began to glow beneath their feet. The air trembled, energy swirling like invisible wind. John stepped back, his hand instinctively going to his rifle. "What are you doing?" he demanded. Lyra's eyes flashed bright silver. "Showing you why the syndicate hunts us." The glow grew stronger, beautiful and terrifying. Symbols appeared in the air, spinning slowly. Ancient language, older than any human colony. The light merged together, forming a single sphere of energy. When it faded, a small cube floated above their hands. It shimmered like glass but pulsed like a heartbeat. "This," Lyra said softly, "is the core of the archive." John stared, unable to look away. "It's alive," he whispered. "Yes," she nodded. "It stores memories, voices, knowledge of civilizations long gone. Each of us carries a piece of it within our blood, but only together can we awaken it." John frowned. "So you're telling me those soldiers came to take that thing?" Lyra met his eyes. "They want to use it as a weapon, to rewrite minds, to enslave entire planets." He looked at the cube again. "So it's not just a memory box," he muttered. "It's a bomb waiting to be used wrong." She nodded slowly. "That is why we ran, and why we cannot hide forever." John walked to the window, staring at the desert beyond. He knew what was coming. A siege, maybe worse. His ranch was no fortress, but it was home. And these 11 strange, luminous women had become part of it. He turned to them, voice steady. "Then we stop running," he said. Lyra blinked in surprise. "You mean to fight?" He nodded. "I mean to end it." They spent the rest of the day preparing. John repaired drones, reinforced walls, laid down old traps from his soldier days. The widows worked beside him, their glowing hands welding metal and fixing circuits faster than machines. At night, he found Lyra sitting alone near the corral, watching the stars. He sat beside her quietly. "You could have kept running," he said. She smiled faintly. "So could you." The stars reflected in her silver eyes like tiny fires. John felt something shift inside him. Something human, something dangerous. For years he had lived like a ghost. Now, because of them, he felt alive again. He didn't say it aloud, but Lyra saw it in his eyes. Suddenly, the comm tower crackled. A robotic voice echoed through static. "To the inhabitant of Sector Arden, 7, surrender the fugitives or face orbital cleansing." John stood, fists clenched. "Guess we don't have much time," he said grimly. Lyra rose too, her cloak shimmering in the wind. "Then let us make our stand," she said. He smiled slightly. "Yeah," he muttered, loading his rifle. "Let's make them regret coming for my ranch." As the sun set, the sky filled with red streaks, ships descending through the atmosphere. The ranch lights flickered like a heartbeat in the growing darkness. And for the first time in years, John Miller didn't feel alone. He felt ready. The galaxy had come to his door again. And this time, it would learn what it meant to fight a human who had already lost everything. The warning came just before dawn. The sky turned crimson as burning trails crossed the horizon. John Miller stood at the edge of his ranch, watching syndicate ships descend like falling stars. His breath came slow and calm. He had been here before, the quiet before hell opened. Only this time, he wasn't fighting for orders. He was fighting for his home, and for 11 lives that had nowhere else to go. Inside, the widows gathered near the glowing cube, the core of the archive. Its pulse matched the rhythm of their hearts. Lyra turned toward John, her expression calm but fierce. "They won't stop," she said. "They'll burn the whole planet if they must." John loaded his rifle, checking each charge pack. "Then we don't give them the chance," he replied. The others looked at him, a lone human with tired eyes and a soldier's posture. For a moment, even they felt braver. The first strike hit the desert miles away. A shock wave of dust rolled toward the ranch, shaking the ground. John's drones lifted into the air, forming a defense grid around the property. Metal wings hummed, cameras flickering to life. He'd spent all night reprogramming them for combat. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. Through the haze, dark figures appeared. Syndicate troops, hundreds of them. They moved like shadows, armored and silent. John took position near the main gate. The widows spread out, their glowing hands ready. When the enemy came into range, he gave a single nod. Now, the desert erupted. Energy blasts and rail fire lit the dawn. John's turrets opened up, drones screamed overhead. Sand turned to glass under the heat of plasma fire. The widow's hands moved together, creating shields of shimmering blue light. Shots bounced off them like sparks on water. Lyra raised her arms, and the ground itself began to tremble. Blue energy veins spread through the sand like lightning. Then, an explosion of light burst upward, hurling syndicate troops backward. John fired between bursts of light, his rifle glowing hot. He ducked behind a wall, shouted to Lyra, How are you doing that? She gritted her teeth, sweat running down her temple. It's the archive's energy. It listens to us. Well, tell it to listen louder, he yelled, firing again. The syndicate forces regrouped. Dropships circled overhead, releasing spider-like drones that scuttled across the sand. John's defense grid started to fail. He switched to manual controls, targeting the biggest ship. Come on, come on. He pressed the trigger. A missile streaked into the sky and slammed into the dropship's engine. The explosion tore it apart, raining metal across the desert. The widows cheered, short, sharp, desperate sounds of victory. But it wasn't over. More troops landed beyond the hills, forming a line around the ranch. John saw them through the dust, an army. He knew what came next. They'd call an orbital strike. Lyra, he shouted, can that cube do anything bigger? She looked at the core. It was glowing brighter now, almost blinding. Yes, she said softly, but it will cost us. John frowned. What do you mean? If we use it fully, our connection will end, maybe forever. He looked at her. 11 women ready to sacrifice everything. He had seen soldiers with less courage. He nodded slowly. Do it. The widows formed a circle again. Light poured from their bodies, merging into the core. The cube lifted high, spinning faster and faster until it exploded in a wave of blue fire. The syndicate ships froze midair, their systems collapsing. Troops screamed as weapons shut down and armor failed. The desert blazed with energy, silent and endless. When it ended, only the wind moved. John opened his eyes, ears ringing. The ranch was still standing. The enemy was gone. Only dust and silence remained. He turned toward the widows. They were still standing, but faint. Their light dimming, their breathing shallow. Lyra stumbled, and John caught her before she fell. Her eyes flickered like fading stars. It's done, she whispered. He held her tightly. You did it, he said, voice rough. You saved us all. She smiled weakly. No, John Miller. You gave us something to fight for. Then her head rested against his chest. Her light slowly fading into a soft glow. John looked at the horizon. The sky was clear again, peaceful, but no longer empty. He wasn't alone anymore. He looked down at Lyra and the others resting under the rising suns. Peace, he murmured. We finally earned it. The world was quiet again. The sky above Arden, 7 was clean and blue, the smell of burnt sand fading with the morning breeze. John Miller stood in the middle of his ranch, surrounded by the remains of battle, shattered armor, broken drones, and the faint smoke of victory. He should have felt relief, but instead there was only emptiness. Inside the house, the 11 widows lay resting, their glowing skin dimmed to pale silver. They were alive but weak, their connection to the core almost gone. John moved quietly between them, checking each one. He didn't know alien medicine, but he knew care. He covered them with blankets, brought water, and whispered, You're safe now. When he reached Lyra, she was half awake, her breath shallow. Her eyes opened slowly, still silver, but soft like moonlight. You shouldn't have stayed, she murmured. He smiled faintly. I'm too old to run. She tried to laugh, but the sound broke into a sigh. The core, it's gone, she said. We used everything. He nodded. It saved us. That's all that matters. Outside, the land was strangely calm. No ships in the sky, no signals on the comm. But something had changed. The air hummed faintly, like invisible energy flowing beneath the sand. John didn't understand it, but he could feel it. The planet was alive again, as if awakened by what they had done. Days passed. He rebuilt the fences, repaired the barn, and cleaned the battlefield. The widows slowly recovered, though their glow never fully returned. They helped him plant new crops, glowing flowers that shimmered blue under the night. Life returned to the ranch, gentle and unfamiliar. Sometimes, John would sit by the porch at sunset, watching them laugh softly, their strange language mixing with the wind. He hadn't heard laughter on this planet in years. One night, as the twin moons rose, Lyra joined him outside. She looked at the stars for a long time before speaking. They will come again, she said. Maybe not the syndicate, but others, they will want what we carry. John nodded slowly. Then they'll find the same welcome, he said, patting the rifle beside him. Lyra smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. You fight for us as if we are your own. He looked at her, his weathered face softening. Maybe you are, he said quietly. For a moment, neither spoke. Only the sound of wind and the distant hum of alien insects. Later that night, John woke to a strange light coming from the field. He grabbed his coat and stepped outside. Lyra stood alone in the middle of the crops, her hands glowing bright again. Lyra, he called, but she didn't answer. The ground beneath her shimmered, and faint blue symbols appeared, the same ones from the core. He ran toward her. What are you doing? She turned, eyes filled with tears and light. The core was never destroyed, she whispered. It merged with us, with me. John froze. What does that mean? Her voice trembled. It means the archive lives on through us, but it also means they will sense it again. She stepped closer, placing her glowing hand over his heart. You protected what no one else would, she said softly. The core has chosen you too. Before he could speak, a faint warmth spread through his chest, a pulse of blue energy. For a moment, he saw memories not his own, stars collapsing, civilizations rising, alien children laughing under strange skies. Then it was gone. He stumbled back, breathing hard. What was that? The first link, she whispered. Now part of the archive rests inside you. John stared at her in disbelief. I'm no savior, he said quietly. Lyra shook her head. No, you're something rarer, a human who still believes in mercy. The wind picked up again, carrying the scent of rain, a rare blessing on Arden 7. Lightning flashed far away, lighting up the dunes. John looked toward the horizon. The peace he had once wanted felt different now, not silence, but balance. Maybe that was what real peace meant, protecting it, not hiding from it. He turned back to Lyra, who stood glowing softly in the dark. Whatever comes next, he said, we face it together. She smiled, tired but hopeful. Yes, she said, together. Above them, the stars shimmered brighter than ever. Somewhere deep beneath the desert, the core pulsed again, faint but alive. Arden 7 had survived the fire. And in the quiet heart of 1 human and 11 alien widows, a new legend was beginning. Years passed quietly on Arden 7. The planet that once echoed with fire and battle now breathed with life. John Miller's ranch stood strong, no longer a lonely shelter, but a symbol whispered across the stars. They called it the Blue Ranch. Because at night, under the twin moons, the fields glowed with soft blue light, like a sea made of stars. The 11 alien widows still lived there, their strength returned, their glow dimmer but steady. They worked beside John, planting crops, repairing drones, and raising strange animals that glowed like fireflies in the dusk. Together, they built something no one thought possible. Peace that could be seen, touched, and shared. Word began to spread. Traders who had once feared Arden 7 now spoke of it with wonder. Refugees whispered its name in the shadow of broken worlds. They said there was a place where a human rancher offered safety to anyone hunted or lost. No one who came there left hungry or hopeless. They said a man guarded it, a soldier with silver eyes. At first John didn't believe the stories. But when he looked in the mirror one morning, he saw a faint shimmer behind his pupils, the same light that lived in Lyra and the others. The core's energy had changed him slowly, quietly. He could sense when danger approached, could feel the heartbeat of the planet beneath his feet. It didn't frighten him, it made him whole. One evening, as the suns fell, John sat on the porch cleaning his rifle. Lyra joined him, her silver hair shining under the last orange light. She handed him a small object, a pendant made of crystal and metal, glowing softly. What's this? He asked. A piece of the archive, she said. It's bound to you now, you should wear it. He smiled. I'm not much for jewelry. Lyra looked at him with gentle eyes. It's not for beauty, it's for memory, she said. So the stars never forget what you did. John held the pendant in his palm. It was warm, almost alive. He felt the faint pulse of energy inside it, the same heartbeat that had filled the widow's hands during the battle. He slipped it around his neck silently. Maybe some stories didn't need to be written. Maybe they just needed to be remembered. That night, a ship appeared in orbit, small, damaged, carrying survivors from a colony destroyed by war. John saw the beacon flicker across the horizon. He didn't hesitate. He went to the gate, activated the landing lights, and waited. When the ship touched down, frightened voices filled the air. Alien families, soldiers, children, all searching for safety. Lyra and the others rushed to help, guiding them into the barns and houses, offering food and warmth. John stood back for a moment, watching. The sight made his chest tighten with something between pride and disbelief. He whispered softly, "I wanted peace for myself, but maybe peace only exists when you share it." From that day on, the ranch was never empty. More came. Humans, aliens, wanderers from forgotten wars. They built new homes beside John's old one, forming a small village that glowed blue every night. And every person who arrived learned the same simple rule. No one was turned away. Years later, stories of the human rancher spread beyond local systems. Some said he was immortal. Others said he had become part of the planet itself. Children born on Arden, 7 grew up hearing his name. The man who fought for peace and turned a desert into hope. One evening, Lyra found him sitting beneath the stars, older now, but still strong. She asked quietly, "Do you ever miss the silence?" John smiled faintly, eyes on the glowing fields. "No," he said. "Silence means no one's laughing." A warm wind moved through the crops, carrying the scent of rain and earth. Above them, the stars shimmered like watchful eyes. Lyra rested her hand on his shoulder. "Then your wish came true," she said softly. He nodded slowly. "Yeah," he whispered. "I got my peace, just not the way I expected." When the night grew quiet again, the core pulsed faintly beneath the soil. The planet remembered his promise. And somewhere across the galaxy, refugees looked to the stars, guided by rumors of a ranch that glowed blue in the dark. A place where a human once chose kindness over fear and changed the fate of 11 worlds forever.